Hi, I'm Adamsdownboy, and welcome to the start of the Muthacluckers Clan's raid guide series to Destiny 2's Root of Nightmares. These guides are aimed at anyone who's yet to run the raid, or for anyone who's been stuck on ad clear duty but wants to learn the mechanics so that they can take a more active role. I'd like to thank my clanmates, Aaron PK, Frel UK, Minoni, Electric Sheep, Tooks and Zone Runner for running a raid with possibly the most professionalism ever seen in a raid video, and to Zone Runner for acting as my script consultant. If you've seen our guides to Vow of the Disciple and Kingsfall, we take the same approach as before. Each encounter or section will be a separate video with me initially talking through the aims, the arena you're in, how to apply the raid's mechanics and ideas for loadouts. Then I'll describe how the encounter plays out while you watch from the perspective of all 6 Fireteam members, initially pausing to explain what's happening before letting the video run so that you can see how everything works in real time. We cover how to get the secret chests, as well as the location of the seeds you need to activate to obtain the guaranteed Deepsight weapon from the final boss chest. We don't cover the challenges of the master version. Once you've understood the basics and are confident in executing them, the videos on YouTube that cover these should be easier to understand. There's also lore entries that you can collect as you run through the raid, but again, we'll leave it to a guide elsewhere to show you where they are. Our run was recorded towards the end of Season 20, the Season of Defiance, so we're using the seasonal artifact mods and the weapons reflect the meta then. There are only barrier champions in here, so that's the only champion type you'll need to consider, and only solar shields. Not a huge issue without the match game modifier, but nice for the additional damage and flinch you get from breaking a shield with a matching energy type. These are the weapons and armour that drop from the chests in Root of Nightmares. As is usual for Bungie, raid weapons can be quite spicy, offering combinations of traits you won't find elsewhere in the game. You'll need to drop 5 red box Deepsight versions to unlock the pattern to be able to make one at the Enclave in Savathûn's throne world. The raid exotic is a shotgun, which fires a combination of stasis freeze and solar ignite pellets and is, in Tooks' own words, awesome, so is well worth chasing. The unique raid mechanic for Root of Nightmares, common to all but the third encounter, is that of growing seeds by connecting nodes. This is known as the gardener mechanic. There are 2 types, light and dark, and it's easy to see which is which as the light seeds are white and the dark seeds are a light brown. The nodes can be in one of 4 states: buffed, active, inactive and dormant. When buffed, you'll see a formed seed with an aura that matches the seed's colour. An active node will show as a formed seed with no aura, and an inactive node will appear as a dark grey seed with a light dark helix around it. Finally, a dormant node will appear as a light dark helix without a seed. An encounter starting node will be buffed. You'll see the seed in its aura near the rally banner location. By interacting with the buffed node, by shooting it while inside the aura, you'll gain either Field of Light or Flux of Darkness. I'll be calling any Guardian responsible for the Gardener mechanic a runner throughout these videos. As you shoot the seed, a beam will appear from the seed that points in the direction of the next inactive node in the chain. In the first and fourth encounters, the order in which the nodes are connected will change slightly each time, and in the second encounter the order is fixed. Only someone holding the correct buff will be able to successfully connect nodes and extend the chain. After shooting the initial buffed node 3 times, the location of the buffed node will move every time you shoot to collect Field of Light. From the Clucker's experience, in the first and last encounters, the seeds are grouped in 3s, which the buff node moves between. When a section of 3 seeds is completely activated, the buff node can move to any active seed position in the section, except for its current position. I'll illustrate this using the last phase of our Cataclysm run. After activating nodes 2 and 3, the buff node doesn't move as at step 1. After shooting it a third time, it'll swap to either node 2 or 3 as per step 2. While activating nodes 5 and 6, the buff node will move between nodes 1, 2 and 3 as at step 3. Finally, once node 6 is activated and the runner returns to refresh Field of Light, the buff node could move to any node position between 1 and 6 as per step 4. If the buff timer runs out and you need to regain it, remember that it will have moved from when you last collected it, so you'll need to relocate the buff node first. Once you refresh the buff, you can connect to the next node in the chain. This will again create a beam showing where the next inactive node is located. As you successfully activate the inactive node, you will lose the buff and will need to regain it in order to extend the chain further. Multiple people can hold a buff simultaneously, but only by standing within the aura when the runner fires to activate it. If someone else shoots the buffed seed while the runner is holding Field of Light, you'll see the on-screen message, "Nodes of Splendor have been disrupted," and they'll be unable to continue the chain. You'll need to wait for the timer to reset before the runner can recollect the buff and continue connecting nodes. Subclass movement tools like Strand Grapple, Titan Shield Bash and Warlock Icarus Dash are useful to get between nodes quickly. If you like your lore, My Name is Bife has run a raid with his Fireteam which explains how Nezarec fits into the overall narrative arc in Destiny, the story behind the Witness's flagship called the Essence that the raid takes place on, and what's happening with the mechanics in the encounters. You'll find the link in the description. So, with the main raid mechanic covered, I'll now move on to the raid itself. If you look up after transmatting in, you'll see the Tree of Silver Wings created by the Traveller's attack on the ship, which is in the process of terraforming the environment around you. These are the creaks and cracks you'll hear as you make your way through the raid. The final boss encounter takes place underneath this tree. You'll be travelling towards it as you progress through encounters. Your Fireteam will initially make their way through a series of small skirmishes with Shadow Legion Cabal forces. As you make your way through Cataclysm towards the first encounter arena proper, make sure to first stop off to check which Deepsight seeds need to be shot to spawn the guaranteed red box weapon. In the first building you come across, on your left hand side, with a tower next to it, you'll find the Deepsight seed garden out back next to a wall with 3 seeds visible. This is the sequence in which 3 Deepsight seed sets that are dotted throughout the raid will need to be activated in order left to right. In this example, the seeds need to be activated in the order Dark, Light, Light. As you find and activate each seed set, while progressing through the raid, everyone will see the on-screen message, "Your actions take root." If any of the 3 seed sets are incorrectly activated, you'll be locked out of the Deepsight chest for that raid attempt, and the message, "Your spoils suffer irreparable damage," will appear in everyone's feed. If you're successful, after activating the 3rd Deepsight seed set, everyone will see a message on screen that reads, "A great harvest awaits." Be aware that if you go to orbit in the middle of a raid, perhaps intending to finish it the next day, then the Deepsight sequence will reset, so it will not be possible to spawn the guaranteed red box weapon when you return. I'm now going to run the first few minutes of the raid so that you can see where the Deepsight seed garden is located, and then on to the first set of Deepsight seeds. Follow Aaron's video for the location of both, and the others for the route to the start of the Cataclysm encounter.
Jeep, are you launching?
Yeah, we're loading in.
Yeah.
Adam's talking about the intro every time. I did the clapper.
That sounds like you're rustling a packet of crisps there, Sheep.
That wasn't me. This intro is a catastrophe.
Pro team. Pro team. We are conscious buds, right?
I like the way the subtitles have just come up for me saying laughs ominously.
Yeah, that was my bad on the packet sweets.
It's a long journey.
You know what,
You've
I
got to
could
have
have
sweets.
You're a guardian, you're about to go do a raid, you gotta open your sweeties.
I like my Sour Patch Kids.
Yeah, that's pretty standard. It is. We are professionals.
Aaron, keep to the left after the initial group of Cabal to see 3 seeds in the garden. Read these left to right, so in our case this was Dark, Light, Light.
Okay, we have dark light.
I like the shot.
Is that the exotic one?
Yeah.
After the last of the Cabal skirmishes, after exiting the building with a red-lit interior, Erin, with Minnow as unexpected company, jumps down to connect the first Deepsight seed set. You'll see she shoots the Dark Seed first and then follows the beam while carrying the Flux of Darkness buff to activate a second seed to complete the chain and trigger the "Your actions take root" message on screen. The rest of the Fireteam make their way to the start of the Cataclysm encounter.
Where's Minnow going?
Oh yeah, you're doing it. So I know where this one is. I was on autopilot.
Yeah.
Pro team.
I mean, I've already forgotten what the combination is, so probably best I'm not doing it.
Dark, white, light.
Thank you.
You write it down or do you have good memory?
I just remember it's only 3 things.
Good memory then. Nice.
I mean, it's 3 things more than I could remember.
This is the first encounter in the Root of Nightmares. There's no mini-boss, but this is the first time in the raid that you'll be executing the gardener mechanic in combat conditions. Your aim is to progress through and exit the far end of the arena by linking 4 node chains of increasing length in turn across its width, starting with 5 seeds and ending with 8. At the same time, you'll be killing tormentors that spawn in to extend a wipe mechanic timer. You'll trigger the tormentor spawn by killing 2 shielded scions that periodically spawn in at varying locations among red bar ads. If you look to your right from the rally banner, you'll see the Traveller with the triangular portal that the Witness created at the end of the Lightfall DLC. This map of the Cataclysm Arena shows the location of the 4 phases and the chains you'll be building, together with the possible spawn points for the shielded scions and tormentors in each phase. You're free to explore the first phase area. If you go directly ahead of you, you'll see the 4 dormant seed nodes that will be connected in the first phase. The encounter is started by shooting the buff node by the rally banner, or if you stray too far into the second phase area. Starting the encounter will begin a 35-second Sweeping Terror debuff timer countdown. This is the wipe mechanic, which will trigger if it ever reaches 0. The Cluckers just use left, mid and right as callouts as we progress along the length of Cataclysm, and call out the shielded scions, also adding whether they have spawned up top or on the bottom level, and the mini-boss locations. You'll split into 2 role-based teams, 1 runner to construct the node chains and the remaining 5 gunners to kill scions, tormentors and barrier champions and clear ads. While the Cluckers use only 1 runner, you can run with 2. We prefer to have an extra gunner, but 2 runners is faster and gives the inactive runner more time to find where the buff node has moved to. Within the team of gunners, it's a good idea to agree who's going to concentrate on ads on the left and right sides so that no matter where the runners are, they're not facing a huge force of Cabal while unsupported. The runner or runners will be building the chain from one side to the other. We'll use the first phase from the video as our example. 1 runner by themselves would start from the first node as at step 1, activating it by shooting to gain the field of light buff. They'll then move to the second node indicated by the beam. The buff has a 20-second timer to use. If it runs out you won't die, but you will need to refresh it at the buffed node. You'll see that in each phase some nodes are entangled, so the next node is resolved only after you shoot the buffed node. In the first phase, the nodes 2 and 3 are an entangled pair. In the second phase, nodes 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 are paired. In the third phase, nodes 2 and 3 and 5 and 6 are paired. And in the fourth phase, nodes 2 and 3, 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 are paired. Once the first member of the pair has resolved, the next node will always be the other. In this example, shooting the first node revealed the second node is to the right, which means the third node will automatically be the one to the left. Once at the second node, as at step 2, they'll shoot to activate it as per step 3, losing the buff. The light beam from the second node will point to the third node. Having lost the buff, the runner now needs to go back to the first buffed node to shoot it to regain field of light as at step 4, before going to activate the third node, again losing the buff at step 5. The runner will then return to the first node as per step 6 to regain the buff, before moving to the fourth node to activate it as per step 7. The buff node has now moved, in this example from the initial node to the second node, so the runner locates it and then goes there to regain the buff as per step 8, before completing the chain at the fifth and final node as per step 9. Running through the same scenario, if your fire team has 2 runners, then as the first runner shoots to gain the first buff as at step 1 and connect to the second node to the right, the second runner will start off by waiting next to the first node as per step 2. When the first runner activates the second node, as per step 3, they'll call out that they have done so. While the first runner returns, the second runner shoots the first node to gain field of light and runs to the third node as per step 4. The second runner activates it as per step 5, calling out when that's done. At this point, the first runner should be next to the first node again as per step 6 to collect the buff and make their way to activate the fourth node. The buff node will now have moved, in this case to node 2, so the second runner finds where it is and then goes there to wait. When the first runner calls out that the fourth node is activated, as at step 7, the second runner collects the buff from node 2 as at step 8 and goes to the fifth node to activate it as at step 9 and complete the phase. Once the seed chain is complete, all of the seeds will emit a burst of light, the message "His hatred halts" appears, and the sweeping terror debuff will clear. The runner or runners should make their way to the first currently dormant node on the right hand side of the next phase area, killing adds as they go, until the next phase starts and the node spontaneously changes its state to buffed. While the runners are connecting the nodes, the gunner team has some mechanics to execute too. After starting the encounter, Shadow Legion Cabal adds will periodically spawn in, mostly a mix of Legionnaires and Centurions. A few seconds after the phase starts, and then periodically through the phase, the message "An adherent of torment has appeared" will display. This signals the arrival of 2 orange bar shielded scions, which will spawn randomly in the section of the arena that you're building the chain across. Their shield is immune to weapon fire, so you'll need to shoot or melee them while inside the shield to kill them. Call them out as you see them, as killing them is now a priority as they will keep nodes dormant, preventing chains being extended. While anyone can kill these scions, the Cluckers usually allocate a couple of the gunner team to scout them out and hunt them down, so the other gunners can focus on clearing out ground level adds to keep the runner's path clear. Once both are killed, you'll see the message "Pain calls forth a Tormentor", and a cavern of Nezarec Tormentor will spawn in on the left or right side. Once spotted, again call its location out. On the other side of the arena at the same time, a Barrier Colossus will spawn. As with all Tormentors, focus initially on the shoulder pads so that your fire team is able to damage them over their whole body. The caverns are mini-bosses. You can tell from the diamond symbol next to their name with a raid skull symbol inside, so they can't be finished, frozen with stasis or suspended with strand. Killing the Tormentor brings up the message "His hatred is momentarily delayed" on screen and adds 35 seconds onto the sweeping terror timer. The runners should keep a close eye on the timer and, if it's running low, communicate with the gunners to kill the current Tormentor quickly. For later phases, if you have enough time on the clock to comfortably finish connecting all of the nodes in a phase, the runner can call out that the gunners should damage but not kill a spawned Tormentor. If you kill it just before your runner completes the connections in a phase, then you'll be extending a timer as it clears and you'll gain no advantage. But if you wait until the start of the next phase to kill it, you can immediately extend the sweeping terror countdown and start with extra time, which takes some pressure off the runners, particularly in the last 2 phases where they're connecting 7 and then 8 nodes. And While killing the barrier champion doesn't add to your timer, they should also be prioritised over rank and file adds, as they can be lethal if left alive with their combination of heavy slug thrower and blinding slowing micro missiles. Once the runner connects the nodes across all 4 phases, the encounter will end, remaining enemies will despawn after a few seconds, and the chest will appear on the right hand side of the 4th phase area. You can drop the Nessa's Ablation Shotgun, Caraxis' Distress Heavy Grenade Launcher, or Briar's Contempt Linear Fusion Rifle, helmet, arms and chest armour. Runners should be using loadouts that speed up movement and provide defensive buffs. A lightweight primary weapon to boost your mobility, exotic armour pieces that boost jumping ability and sprint speed, or that add healing ability or improve invisibility are all viable. You won't be engaging in combat that much, your primary function is to stay alive and connect the nodes. Gunners can choose any loadout that works well for ad clear, as long as they have good special and heavy weapons to burst down tormentors and pierce and kill barrier champions. In the absence of a piercing weapon, strand shackle grenades will suspend a champion so that it's unable to raise its barrier. For our run, Tukes operated as the solo runner, with everyone else assigned as gunners. Erin, Minnow and Zone were gunners also actively looking for scions when they spawned, and Sheep and Frel were pure ad clearing gunners. Tukes activates the first node to start the encounter and gains the 20-second Field of Light buff. The 35-second sweeping terror timer also starts for the whole Fireteam. After activation, the seed beam points to node 2 on his right.
Go Tukes.
Right.
Tukes activates node 2 and heads back to node 1 to refresh the Field of Light buff. With the second node having been on the right, he now knows that the third node can only be the one ahead to his left. An adherent of Torment has appeared, displays at the same time as an audio cue, and scions spawn in on the far left and right sides. As they're called out and killed, the message "Pain kills forth a Tormentor" appears on screen, together with another audio cue that one's appeared. Erin and Minnow call right side to indicate that's the Tormentor location. After killing it, the message "His hatred is temporarily delayed" appears on screen, and 35 seconds is added to the sweeping terror timer.
Far left, Scion.
Or the other one.
Tukes activates node 3 and again heads back to refresh the light buff at node 1.
Right side.
Right side.
Sheep is forced to kill the barrier colossus with an actual proper weapon for a change, after honourably and entirely deliberately flinging his bonk hammer away to even the odds. Tukes activates node 4 and looks for where the buff node has moved to. He spots it's at node 2 and goes to refresh the light buff.
Shields off.
Tormentor is killed, adding 35 seconds to the sweeping terror countdown timer. Tukes activates the 5th and final node for phase 1, and all the first phase nodes emit a burst of light to indicate success. The message "His hatred halts" appears on screen, and the sweeping terror timer disappears. The whole Fireteam now kills adds until the first buff node of the second phase appears with the 2 shielded scions. You can now watch through the rest of the Cataclysm encounter video. Focus on Tukes over the remaining 3 phases if you want to see the Gardener mechanic in action, and the rest of the Fireteam for the communication about the location of scions and tormentors. It looks fairly chaotic from the outside because it is, but it's a fun chaos when you're in the middle of it.
Got bombs, Zion. I know Zion's got it, never mind.
Oh, the other one's at the back, I'll get it.
I got it. Left
Left
side.
side.
One's
That's
top.
up top.
Yeah. One. One's front left, I'm going for it. Okay.
Right.
Right side. Barriers in mid.
I'm getting this eye on.
You don't need it.
Punch it if... Okay.
Okay.
Everything is in good places today.
So far.
Was that a jinx?
Yeah.
Absolutely. It is customary. Got the right sign. Left one. Can see.
Left side. Up at the top.
No.
Oh.
Got the right sign. Left one's at the top.
Left side.
Barry's on the right.
I got the silence.
Should be okay, but you know.
Oh, he's up anyway.
Go
Sorry.
pick up
We know
Mino.
he's down, I'll get him. I'll go him.
Thank you.
I'm the last one anyway.
I don't get Mino.
That's what happens when you use a grenade launcher.
Oh. That was easy.
You shouldn't sound so surprised.
As you can see, one runner is really all that's needed for a speedy clear. The main wobbles can occur if you don't find and kill scions fast enough, which will hold up the runner while the sweeping terror countdown ticks on, taking too long to kill a tormentor, or if someone gets isolated, particularly with the bulkier adds around. Or, in Minno's case, if you blow yourself up with Fighting Lion after a Legionnaire's "Get down, Mr. President" lunge. Even so, as we ably demonstrate, a death or two along the way shouldn't be too much of a problem. As long as you're killing tormentors to refresh the timer, and the runner is connecting nodes unmolested, you should hopefully get your clear without too much fuss. That's all for the Cataclysm encounter. I'd like to thank Kyber 2000 for their consent to use the raid loot infographic, and Priony for their outstanding encounter maps, which saved me a lot of time for this series. On behalf of the Muthacluckers, thanks for watching. We hope that's been helpful, and may all your drops be god rolls.